Representative Lane. She is the ranking member of the Election Law Committee, and she is substituting for Representative Gerard. And I would also like to welcome to the committee Representative Freeman, who is substituting today for Representative Karazinski. So as I had said, that the committee has convened to hear one bill that was rescheduled. And I would assume that after the hearing, we will hold partisan caucuses, followed by executive sessions on the bills. So with that, I would, the chair will open the public hearing on House Bill 225, FN Local, an act requiring public notice before reassessment of property values for local tax purposes. And at this time, the chair calls Senator Avard to introduce the bill. Good morning, Senator, and welcome to municipal and county government.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'll use the big seat because I got to lose weight. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for your devotion being here on a Monday. Beautiful day. Wish I were at the beach. And yes, I am the prime sponsor of SB 225 FN Local. And for the record, I'm Senator Kevin Avard, District 12. Yeah, very proud to bring this bill before you. The impetus of this bill really has to do with, prior to the elections, a number of individuals in Nashua received a notice that they were reassessed for the second time, I believe in 2 years. And with that assessment was a 7-day allowance to challenge it. Now that's a problem. They had 7 days. Your house was reassessed. If you want to challenge it, you got 7 days. Now, and this kind of goes along with something. I recently had a heart attack just about a month ago, a full-blown heart attack. I was in the ICU for 2 days. And if the notice would have come to me on a Friday, which it was, and I wouldn't have gotten home until Monday, now I have basically 4 days to read the mail, find out what's going on, and challenge what just happened. We did get reassessed in Nashua, and it turned out to be a $700 increase. We had 7 days. Now, if you're in Florida on vacation, you had no way to challenge that. And it was a company that was from Hudson, Massachusetts on top of that just said, hey, look, you got reassessed, here's your 7-day notice. That's not fair. It's not fair to individuals who are away on vacation, who are sick, or need somebody else to help them process that. It's not fair. So I put in originally that there should be a 90-day notice of this. The Senate amended it to 45 days so that people are going to have time to challenge the information that was presented to them. And so that's really the essence of this bill is proper notification. Gives the people the time to challenge what happened. We got the notice. Nobody showed up at my house to do the assessment. Some company out of state did it. That's not fair. All we're looking for is a little bit of fairness and a little bit of transparency and the ability for the people to have a right to challenge what's going on here. So, I mean, that's the essence of the bill. Let's give the local residents at least 45 days to challenge the reassessment instead of 7. So with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you, Senator. I have a real quick question. So the company that did the reevaluations, you said was out of Hudson,
Mass.
Massachusetts. Okay, thank you. Other questions for the senator? Representative Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When you say challenge, what do you mean? File for an abatement?
Correct. Yeah, well, if you disagree with the assessment, there's a process.
Yeah.
But they only gave you 7 days.
Yeah, but you can file for an abatement all the way up till April of the next year.
But in the letter, it said you had 7 days to challenge the assessment.
I'm not quite understanding what you challenged because that's not the process that I know about.
Yeah, well, that's what was written in the, if you thought that the information was incorrect on this assessment, you had 7 days. I didn't bring the paper with me. I wish I had it. Because my house was affected by it, and so was my neighbors. And nobody would, that's the only notice that they got. Our property taxes went up $700.
Ours are, in my town, went up significantly also. That was the nature of this year with all the revals that went through. The markets are going crazy. But I'm just-
Representative Walker, did you have, this is not a discussion with the
I was just,
prime? Did you have a follow-up?
I was just confused with what are you challenging? I mean, in any case, you have an abatement process is what you do to challenge that. You have until April, so I guess I'm done for now. Thank you.
Are there further questions? Representative Maggiore is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for taking my question. And it's along a parallel to the representative's last question. If I understand the bill correctly, you're not proposing to change the appeal process. If I read this correctly, do I read it that you're not proposing to change the appeal process? You're only proposing to institute a notification process prior to the assessment?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Representative Colby is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. The original RSA had read the notification can occur either by individual notice of the property owner or in a newspaper general circulation. What was your thought process behind mandating it? If Nashua had the option in this case, and they did send you an individual notification. I'm just trying to find the thought process behind now mandating all municipalities to do that versus the option that they had prior.
Well, I think there might be also an amendment that will be coming before you, which also will allow it to be done by mail, because there are some municipalities that might not use social media or might not have internet, who knows? So it'll most likely have the option of being done by mail as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
May I follow up? Okay.
Yes, you may follow up.
Let me get to you off of this one. Maybe this will be easier. On line 11 of the copy of the bill that I have,
Is it the amended version?
I'm working on the Senate amended version.
Yes.
Okay. Line 11 says such notice shall be by individual notice to the property owner, by public notice in a local newspaper of general circulation. So it just goes on to list mandated places and uses the word shall in place of the word either. So it seems, I was just wondering if Nashua voluntarily did this.
I don't know if the recent one that we received, it was just out of the blue. So this says he shall notify you. It's just giving the people a heads up. It's coming.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? Representative Walker.
Yeah, now I found the one I was going to ask. In your Senate amendment version of this thing, you strike out the word "or" on line 15. Because you used to do all these notification notice, public notice, municipality's main website, the social media, public notice in 2 places, municipal. But you struck out "or" and put "and," so you're doing all of that. That is, in Rochester, we have a website, and that's the only notification we give the taxpayers. We put it out on our website. You're making us do newspaper, public notices, mailings that we've never had to do before. And we have 33,000 voters in Rochester, so you're talking that's quite of an expense. So you're actually mandating a lot of work at the expense of the municipality and the taxpayer to do this notification.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Further questions, Representative Stavis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative, for taking my question. To follow up on my colleague's question, would you consider these additional costs to be new taxes on municipalities?
No, I think it's their responsibility to notify the people. Not everybody has internet. I think you had a question over here, Madam Chair.
Further questions? No. Representative excuse me, Colby is recognized for,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the same thing going on with my throat here. And thank you for taking my question. So in the interest of transparency, do you have an average cumulative cost of what the data collection process would be, printing and mailing the notifications directly to taxpayers in municipalities of 10,000 or more? Do we know what the average cost is? Do we know what it cost Nashua to voluntarily send these out?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
further questions. The chair recognizes Representative Freeman for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for taking my question. While this is not my typical committee, I did have a question about the notification process and the fact that you believe that mailing all of the property owners who are up for reassessment a notice. Would you tell me how many times a year property tax bills go out in every city, town, and municipality in the state?
Well, we received two in the last 2 years. So
And a follow-up?
that's in Nashua. Every municipality is different. They have their own way of doing things. So. Oh, you didn't hear that? Oh,
Could you repeat that and pull the mic closer?
that was Nashua.
Yeah.
That we had the two assessments. So it's not like it's every week. So I know it's it's a local responsibility of the municipalities to do this. But if somebody's away and they didn't see it on the internet or they don't have internet, I find that to be a problem. So I think that the local residents need to have more transparency and there needs to be a little bit more accountability with your municipalities. I know they're going to cry that there's, this is an expense or it's a burden. Well, they serve the people, not the other way around. And when somebody is on a fixed income and they were away, whether through medical reasons or they were on a family vacation and they found out that something happened, they had no time to respond. We're not really changing anything other than the fact that there's a notification. And it really shouldn't be that complicated.
Representative Freeman, you
Thank-
had a follow-up question.
I do, thank you. So, Senator Avard, do you think it would be in the best interest of the city, towns, and municipalities who do mail out twice yearly property taxes to put the notification in with those as well?
I don't think it would hurt.
Further questions? Representative Majori is recognized.
Why didn't you shut this off? Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for taking another question, which hopefully is a simple one. I didn't read any objection or comments from the BTLA on this. Do you know if they have chimed in any way?
I do not know that there was any objections. Yeah.
Further questions? Representative Walker has a question.
Yeah. You said you had 2 assessments. Do you know why? Usually it's once.
Yeah, the city of Nashville likes to spend a lot of money.
Well, no, you had a BTLA ordered a reassessment for Nashua because of other reasons. So that was kind of beyond the normal. And I just think that you don't really usually do an annual assessment. You have 5 years. You can do, usually around 2 years, you can do it every 2 years or so. And I do think that this changing all this notification is a burden on the municipalities and the taxpayers. And I just think that you're overreacting to an abnormal reassessment that Nashua had, and you're trying to push that on all the other municipalities, and it doesn't sit right with me. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I disagree.
Further questions? I have a question. So I'm going to direct your attention to line 11 of the bill with regards to the word notice. So in order to ask my question, we need to refer back to line 9, and I know it's not bolded words. So this is in current law. But it says that shall provide notification of changes to the assessed valuation. So my question is, in line 11, you reference the notice shall be by individual notice to the property owner. My question is, could you explain exactly what such notification, what information is that going to contain? And what I'm asking is these notices to the individual property owner, is it custom to say your evaluation has changed from this to this, or is it simply a notice saying reevaluations have been done and directing them to go maybe online and pull their assessment card? Could you clarify that?
I can't at this point. I think that any changes that will be occurring, whether it's the evaluation, they should be notified. And whatever incurs with that, or whatever is entailed in that, individuals in the letter that we got was 7 days to challenge. This is just giving you a 45-day, if there is a makeup of changes in any way, that you have this ability. I wanted it to be 90 days, but Senate Chairman thought it might be better to have it 45 days, so.
Thank you. I appreciate and understand those details that you shared, but how about if so could you please explain to me, and you said that you did receive a notice and it was only 7 days before the issuance of the tax bill. Could you explain to us, because every municipality follows this law, differently due to the fact that there's multiple ways to fulfill this because of the word either. It could be by an individual notice, etc. So could you explain to the committee what your notice and what did that contain? Did it give you, back to my original question, the notice that you received recently, back in the fall of 2024, did it contain specific information with regards to your property, or was it just in a generic notice?
It
You
was-
see what I'm
It was
asking?
regarding our personal property and the evaluation of it, and if you had any concerns or thought that it was incorrect, the information that was provided, you had 7 days to challenge it. That's in the notice itself. I can go back and do some research and see if I can't find that piece of paper and send it to you. But a lot of people in Nashua were concerned about it, and the Senate thought this was a good bill to put forward. Had very little objections to it.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I'm asking is because the bill does change and it does now require all means of notification, the mail, a website, and other social media sites as the means by which the residents shall be notified. So I was just trying to understand now that it's mandated
We were only,
as opposed to as an option.
right, we were
they-
only notified by mail. There was nothing on the website or we would never frequent the website unless needed. We didn't see anything on Facebook. Not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Instagram, not everybody's on the social media platforms. We received it by mail. So if we can receive it by mail, we could be notified by mail at the same time. That you have 45 days instead of 7 days. It's that simple.
Are there further questions? Representative Majori is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you again for taking yet another question. So in the new section of the bill, those communities that do the 5-year reval, I point to myself from Northampton, the language of the bill says the notice must be sent out 45 days prior to the issuance of the final tax bill. So my question is, why don't you want the notice to go out prior to the actual reval, so that people know the reval is happening? Because if I read this correctly, the reval would have already happened, and then you need to send out notice that it's happened and that there's going to be an increase. I'm not really sure that I've asked a question so much as what I'd rather see.
I hear what you're saying, and I partially agree with you that it should be before the reval, because we didn't know that we were getting a reval as well. All we noticed is that we had 7 days to challenge what had came in the mail to us, and that was the reval happened and the increase happened. So it wouldn't, if you want to add that to the language, I'd be happy to work with you on that. But I think the more notification that the public has, the better. Yeah.
Further questions? Representative Stavis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for taking my question, for another question. You stated that the information was not available on the city's website.
Oh, that I don't know. We didn't happen to see it. We just happened to get it in the mail. And
Well, I thought you said that it was not available on the city's website,
if I said then I misspoke.
because it is.
Yeah, if I misspoke, we didn't look at it on the local website. We received it by mail. That was our first notification. We didn't get an email saying that your evaluation went up. We didn't get something in social media saying that your evaluation went up. We did see local individuals saying, hey, what the hell is happening here? That's what we did see. And it was because of the letter that everybody received.
Follow up?
Yes, follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the example you cited about someone being on vacation or away or unfortunately in the hospital, the information is on the city's website. The letter you received could have come after that information was posted. I'm just confused as to your statements about that's the only notification you received.
That is the only notification that we received. We don't go to the website every day. I don't know if you do, but we don't.
Further questions? Representative Lane is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for taking my question. I'm a substitute on this committee, so bear with me. On line 11 through 15, sorry, I think it's going around.
It's a fun committee.
You talk about getting individual notice, 45 days. And then on line 11, you say such notice shall, and then you repeat the individual notice to the property owner, and it runs on for 3 more. That's where you struck the either and the or. But my thought would be would it help clarify things if we said such notice shall be also by public notice? And so in other words, you want the individual notice and these other 3 things. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because the way it reads, it's a little confusing because you've got the individual notice to property owner in 2 places. And I think it just makes it a little more clear that you have to do the individual notice and also have to do these other things.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you a school teacher as well?
No, I'm a former attorney.
Okay. well,
Sorry.
All right. There you go.
Further questions? Representative Stavis is recognized for a question.
Thank you, and I appreciate your patience with my questions.
Absolutely.
So following up on my colleague's observation, are you aware of what it costs the city of Nashua to post notices of its public meetings in a local newspaper?
I know that there is an expense, but I also know they sent us the notice through the mail.
Follow up, please.
Yes, follow up.
And if, as it says in your bill, your proposed bill, the notice shall be printed in a local newspaper of general circulation, and where the municipality regularly posts notices of its governing body meetings, and, that is going to be multi thousands of dollars of expense added to the city of Nashua's budget, which presumably taxpayers would have to pay for in the end. Is that correct?
The taxpayers do pay for that, and the taxpayers who are paying the bill should be notified in a timely fashion of what their government is spending and how they're reassessing their properties. We had 7 days. I wanted 90. I settled for 45.
Representative Elwood is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for taking my question. Are we talking about notifying only those property owners that were reassessed?
Yes.
May I follow up?
Yes.
And so not the entire population or entire of the property owners in a municipality. We're
Correct.
talking just a fraction of property owners because not everybody is reassessed every, 5 years?
Every 5 in Nashua had 2 assessments.
Correct. So,
They had 2 assessments.
Everybody got reassessed.
Twice.
what was that?
I was talking to my colleague in the back.
Okay.
We were just making sure that we all got reassessed twice
Oh, okay.
within the 5
So,
years. Yeah.
so the notification would not be going out to the entire of property owners, just those that were reevaled.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Further questions? I have a further okay, I didn't see that hand over there in the corner. Representative Frucht is recognized. You slid over to be next to Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To be clear, and I've lost my train of thought. If a notice is placed in a newspaper, that would be a notice that just says, we've reassessed a fifth of the properties in town. They are ready. You have been warned. My question is, with a notice like that, how do I, as a property owner, find out if my property has been reassessed in light of the fact that one of your opening statements was that the assessment was not done with a site visit, it was done through an algorithm or some formula based on whatever assessors use to make adjustments over time. Can you help me understand that, please?
The best I can, it was an organization outside of New Hampshire that did the reassessments. Never visited the house, never asked to come in the house. So there must have been some information out there that they used. We were not notified any other way. It might have been on the website, but we don't go to the website every day. It's not something that, it's a habit of us. And I don't receive the National Telegraph. So it might have been in the Telegraph, but that's great. But what I did receive was a notification that we were reassessed for the second time. There was a dollar amount, and if I had any issues with that, I had 7 days to respond. So it came by mail. There was a cost to that mail. that was built into whatever they decide to charge. Why is it such a big problem to say, look, give us 45 days instead of 7? And just kind of, hello?
Follow up, Madam Chair?
Yes, follow up.
Okay, perhaps I need to rephrase my question. What purpose does advertising in a newspaper, social media accounts, public notice posted, if you don't know if your property has been reassessed or not? I
I see what
agree.
you're getting at. I see what, there isn't any personal information other than the fact that there is a public notice that it was done. And then with that, I would imagine you can go to the website and check to see if your property was reevaluated. But the way we received it, in this particular instance, it was through the mail. That's how we learned. And then you had 7 days to challenge it. So if it is done through the social media and whatnot, then you can go to the website and you can look. If that's a means that you have available to you. If you receive it by mail, then you have to go to the Department of Bureaucracy to go check to see how I can challenge it. So it's 45 days.
So I see a number of hands raised, but I'd like to follow up on this line because it goes to a previous question that I had with regards to the noun notice. So as this hearing has continued on, it's my understanding that in lines 11 through 15, notice has different meanings, and it's not really clear. And so what do I mean by that? Well, based on your explanations and your testimony in line 11, the notice that is sent to individual property owners and individual notice, that to me is very specific to that property. So it's customized. And then following along these other notices, public notice in a local newspaper, public notice on the municipality's website, and public notice posted in 2 other common places where the municipality posts such notices. To me, though, that would be a more generic type of a notice that just indicates reevaluations have been done in this municipality, which then would imply that for those interested property owners, it would be prudent of them to go seek down any information, either by going in person to the town hall, accessing the assessment card online, what have you, in order to ascertain how their property may have been reassessed. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do.
And
There's a public notice, which is a general information, and then there's a private notice, which is your personal information regarding your house and the assessment amount. Problem is that you only had 7 days to respond. So we're asking for 45 days.
Yep, thank you. So I want to stay focused on the word notice. I understand that the days, that's a separate issue. So my concern would be at this point is that perhaps the bill in front of us as worded may be confusing. We'll have to see during caucuses and executive session, but now that I think that we understand the intent and what's going on, there may need to be some revised language. So I'm going to continue on with questions. Representative, no, you did not. You're all set. And Representative Colby, did you have a question? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking another question. I really appreciate it. How in Nashua are you raising the funds to pay for a reassessment? In most communities, it goes on a warrant So it's almost like an advance notification. Hey, this is going on, because not only do we need to do it, but we need you to help pay for the reassessment. We need to raise the funds to do it. So how does that work in Nashua that you would be unaware of a reassessment? Is it a different process?
Came right out of the blue, got the letter, your house was reassessed. That's all through mail. That's how it came. Didn't see
Follow
any.
up.
Yeah.
Yes,
so-
follow up.
So how did they raise the money to do that reeval without input from the legislative body, the voters of the community prior?
Well, that's what, it would have to be through the alderman.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Elward is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I'm following up on Representative Colby's comments. Is it true that not all voters are property owners
Correct.
and that not all property owners are voters?
Correct.
Thank you.
Representative Grund is recognized for a question, and then Representative Walker.
Sure. Just quick question.
Sure.
So you've been saying that you only were given 7 days. Who made the decision over the 7 days? Was it the town of Nashua or was it Hudson? Who made,
It was a city notice.
so the city made the decision over 7 days. Did anyone go to the city of Nashua and, sorry, follow up?
Yes, follow up.
Thank you. Did anyone go to the city of Nashua and explain 7 days is unrealistic?
No,
Thank you.
that I know of. Let me clarify. None that I know of.
Representative Walker is recognized for a question.
Thank you. One last one. What happens if you can't make the 45 days?
I guess the same that would happen if you can't make the 7 days. It just goes through without any complaints. Without any challenge.
Case in point, in
Representative Walker, you need to ask for a follow-up, but could you he didn't understand your question.
Right,
Could
I
you,
was-
could you, could
I
you
was just
restate
on-
the question as to
Oh, I
who's
understood the
being
question.
affected? Who,
I'm just going to give them some context on what this means. In Rochester last year, we had difficulties getting our assessments into the DRA to give us a tax rate because we were waiting on information from Waste Management because you have to assess their property as well, and they're complicated. And we didn't get our tax bills out till late December after Christmas. So I'm trying to understand if this is 45 days, what happens if you can't meet it? Do you have to do another notification? It doesn't deal with what happens if you violate your 45 days.
All I can say is that it is incumbent upon the municipalities to make sure that the individuals have a 45-day notice of their assessments. So it will be incumbent upon the municipalities to make adjustments necessary so that individuals do not get hit with a notice at the last minute that they can't meet. I'm not asking for a huge change here. I'm asking for notification for the taxpayers. We got 7 days. It wasn't right. Bottom line is the default is the taxpayers, not the municipalities. My concern is for the taxpayers.
Senator, we're having trouble hearing.
My
speaking
concern
to
is for the
mic.
taxpayers not having the proper notification. I'm not as concerned for the municipalities and the things that the hoops they have to jump through. They serve the people. And when seniors get a notice, you got 7 days to challenge this. I'm sorry. That's, make it work. Make it work. That's all I'm saying. That's all this bill is trying to do. There is a public notice. There is a private notice. Somebody gets a private notice that you've got 7 days to respond. I wanted 90.
So I see Representative Maggiore has a question, but to follow up with this line of inquiry at this point in time, I would like to, could you, would help this committee tremendously if you do know the reason. Why do you understand why there was only a 7-day notice in the instance that happened back at the end of 2024? What was going?
It never has happened in Nashua before that I am aware of, and we've lived there for a very long time. Our assessments, for whatever reason, came in through the mail saying you had, our second assessment, saying you had only 7 days to challenge it. Maybe you should have the mayor come in or the alderman come in and say why they did it that way. But I don't think it was fair, and I made a promise to my constituents that I would put in a bill that they need to be properly noticed. If you're coming through the mail, they can say, well, instead of you having 7 days, you have 45 days to challenge it. Why is that such a burden? And I don't understand the complication to this. It's more or less giving them more than 7 days to challenge the information that they were given. If they're not at home, or if they were on vacation, or they're sick, or if they have a public guardian, or somebody to take care of their finances, they need more than 7 days.
Okay, so I appreciate that, and you've made that clear a number of times. So I'm trying to get past in this hearing, we're seeking understanding. Okay, we're trying to understand. We're trying to understand that we understand what you're trying to do. But we're trying to understand what were the circumstances that contributed to this 7-day notice, because we need to understand the whole problem in order to properly address it through legislation. And I feel like I don't have that understanding right now. So my concern would be is that in absence of that full understanding, this may not be the right solution to the problem. We first need to understand the problem in its totality. And I don't have that understanding right now. So I think that one of my colleagues was asking with regards to the 45 days, and I know that you originally had 90. We won't repeat all those details. But the question that was being asked is, okay, so now what we have before us is 45 days. We need to understand why was Nashua, some of the property owners only given 7 days. That's number one. And number two is, okay, so what if this gets signed into law, 45 days? But what if that same scenario happens in a municipality and they just can't meet the 45 days? What happens then? What's the penalty? And is this just then a suggestion, or you see what I'm saying? Have we solved anything at that point in time? I'm trying to, make this the best that it can be. That's the purpose of a hearing.
Well, I have, if I can answer that, I have absolutely no idea why Nashua did that way. And I would think you would have to ask the mayor himself or the alderman why they chose to only give the residents of Nashua, New Hampshire, only 7 days to comply or to challenge their reassessment. I can't answer that. I can't answer for all the municipalities in the state. All I'm saying is, across the state, if they're going to be given an assessment, that they should be able to challenge it. The mechanisms is not what this is saying that people should be notified. It's simple to me. The reasons why municipalities do what they're doing, my concern is the people. It's the taxpayers. It's the ones who are receiving and paying their notices. If they're given, well, you've only got 7 days to challenge it, that's not fair. Nashua did something egregious to the taxpayers. Are all the towns doing that? I don't know. The notice, there's a public notice and there's a private notice with your personal information as to why the assessors did what they did. I don't know how to make it any more clear than that. And if the committee doesn't find this good, then I can understand. But I think it's, we're making it a little bit more complicated than it should be.
Representative Guthrie is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for all the information. My understanding is if the 7 days go by now, the request for a reval is denied automatically. Don't they have a vehicle for extenuating circumstances to extend that 7 days? Or is it just arbitrarily, when it's done, it's done?
In this particular notice that we received, you had 7 days to challenge it. You can always go for an abatement. You can always ask for an abatement at a later time, but you're still going to have to pay your tax bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Further questions? Representative Majori is recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate that this might be a little frustrating. It's just trying to, and I think we largely agree with noticing. I mean, I certainly do. It's just the mechanics. And one of those mechanics is if we want to notice people, if we want them to have this information, why is the effective date a year out? Why wouldn't it be immediately?
Why wouldn't what be immediate?
Why wouldn't the effective date of the bill be immediately rather than it's effective 2026?
I'd be happy for that to be immediate.
Okay, I just wondered if there was some rationale.
It was the wisdom of the committee to put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Follow up with that question. Was that the way the bill was filed, or did that get the effective date get amended over in the Senate?
I believe I have to look. I'd be happy if it were immediate, but I'm not sure as to why they did that. Let's see. Yeah, no, it was originally July 1st, 2026 on the original bill, so I wouldn't have a problem with it being immediate. Not a concern.
Further questions? The chair recognizes Representative Frocht.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask a question that I think I know the answer to because I think I heard you say it. Is this 7-day notification timeframe particular to the city of Nashua, or do other municipalities within New Hampshire, have they experienced a similar short fuse on responding to their tax notification, whether it's from the assessing firm in Hudson, Mass, or some other assessing firm or local assessors?
You heard me correctly. From my understanding, it was just Nashua that we had heard this, but it seemed to be something to prevent it from happening in other areas. I don't know if it's happened in other areas.
Follow up, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may have a follow-up.
If, as you say, this is a problem particular to Nashua, and I think it's in your most recent assessment, do we really need state legislation, or might it better be solved at the Nashua level?
Thank you for the question. I think that it should be at the state level because there's nothing preventing other towns from doing the same.
Further questions? Representative Elward is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had a constituent request to respond to the property owner's tax bill that was received. This property owner in my district town did not get any notification of revaluation, just the tax bill. So would that be fair to say that not all municipalities send out notifications?
In your particular instance, yes.
Follow up,
Yes, you may have a follow-up.
if I can remember.
Try sitting over here.
So I learned that the property owner could challenge prior to filing for abatement, and that the assessor came out to the property that had not originally had a home visit, actually came out to the property and measured and did all the things that assessors do. So is it fair to say that there are towns where you don't get a notification that your property was reassessed, and that you can challenge the assessment, the reassessment, before going to file for an abatement?
I believe so.
Thank you.
Further questions? Representative Davis, I saw your hand up earlier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, you represent the city of Nashua, is that correct?
One of my towns, yes.
That's one of your towns. Did you go to the city hall and seek the advice of any elected official as to why the 7-day notification?
At that time, no. We were actually scheduled for a vacation in Punta Cana. We got the notification and we were gone for a week.
I see.
So we just were paying it. That's
Further questions? Representative Gilman is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. I understand that this is a problem in Nashua. It has not been a problem, and we're not clear about where the 7-day deadline came from. In my town, which is over 10,000 residents, it's not a city, it's Exeter. We do not currently mail out notice of changes in valuation. So would this not be an extra expense of some large cost to my town?
Do they send anything out in mail?
The bills?
Could it come with the tax bill?
The tax bill would,
Would that be that much more of an expense if it came with your tax bill?
Madam Chair, may I? This is
Well,
not a
I've-
Representative Gilman, yes, you would like to follow up?
no, this is becoming a discussion, and I think I've asked my question and
Oh.
answered it.
I
Okay.
apologize. So
Okay.
I think if they can mail a tax bill, they can also mail a 45-day notice that your bill's going up. And I just think that's fair.
Further questions? Okay, one last question from me. So I know there's been a lot of questions here. We're trying to seek understanding. Did we address where the 45-day came from? Where did the Senate, what was the rationale for 45 days as opposed to 15 days or 30 days?
I don't know. I wasn't there at the hearing. Like I said, I wanted 90.
Follow up for you is, would you be open to something less than 45 days? I know you wanted 90, you made that.
I think
Clear.
minimum, if you're going to go to a bottom line figure, 30 would be fine. But I think people need time.
So a month.
Yes.
You could live with 30 days. Okay. Are there further questions? Representative Lane is recognized for a question.
This isn't exactly a question, and so maybe I should wait till exec session just to share some personal experience. I'll wait till exec. Okay.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Senator, for coming in and introducing your bill.
Committee, thank you very much. I do appreciate the questions. Iron sharpens iron. Thank you.
At this time, the chair recognizes Representative Ohm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your being patient with Senator Avard. Representative Ohm, I also am a resident of Nashua. I also own a rental property in Nashua. So I'm speaking here as a resident affected by this particular circumstances. And I think, Chairman Power, you raised a key point. What are the circumstances here that caused this bill to be put in place? And the circumstances are a surprise snap revaluation instead of a normal 5-year cycle. So myself, my fellow representatives here in Nashua, we were all surprised by this 2-year snap valuation. Now, I could see that we have very little to complain about because Nashua has been very popular as a place to live since COVID. We've had a really nice rebound in property values. It's become a very desirable place to live. And in general, our assessments have gone up about $100,000. I've got a handout here talking about some of the details. Property that was worth $400,000, single-family home is now worth $500,000 after this 2-year period. Nice problem to have. So what's the situation here? Well, one is the surprise notice. We're kind of planning our tax bills, and we know that the evaluations are going to go up, the assessments are going to go up, and we assume it's going to be proportional. But the problem is, on my first page in the handout, is that it's not proportional. The assessment change post-COVID has been much more affecting the single family and the other residences than it is the commercial properties. So as a result of the snap revaluation, we've got a disproportionate share of the tax burden placed on the residences. I submit that had we had a regular 5-year schedule where things can be assessed on a periodic basis and not on a snap basis, where one type of property gets revalued higher because of a COVID rebound compared to a fairly minimal rebound in commercial property, that this would have been a fair evaluation, fair revaluation, but I submitted it wasn't fair. And I, as a landowner, was disappointed that I only got 7 days notice, so I called up the assessor. And they said, well, we've got this third party, and talk to them. I talked to them. I said, well, I've got some evidence that my units are assessed improperly to the other ones. Different square footage, corner units, inside units, and so on. And they said, well, we went through the data, and we'll get back to you. And they got back to me about 2 weeks later and said, well, we're not going to make any changes. Did they come out? No. I have 2 properties. Did they come with the other one? No. It was all computer generated. Okay. So I'm happy that this property is worth more, but I'm disappointed that the residences are assessed at a different time schedule than the commercial property, and that's causing more of a burden on the residences. And had we had a regular 5-year schedule in place, then everybody could be prepared for a discussion. Representative Walker's point about the assessment versus the appeal process is a good one. We had only 7 days to challenge the assessor's card, and that's pretty tight. Yes, we can do the appeal process for the city. We have the standard process, we can do that, and that's going to get into next year. But in the meantime, we got to pay our tax bills. It'd be nice if we could get that resolved prior to the tax bill coming out. So after that, I think you probably asked Senator Aver all the questions you have, but I'll be happy to do my best.
Thank you, Representative Ohm. I see hands up for questions. The chair recognizes Representative Stavis for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative, for taking my question. It's my understanding that the city of Nashua has decided to reevaluate properties every 2 years. So my question is, why wasn't this an issue in 2022?
I don't believe that was decided every 2 years. It's been every 5 years, and they can do a early assessment at their whim. And they seemed to pick an interesting time when the residents' values went up sharply.
The chair recognizes Representative Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for your testimony. Curious though, as I hear the testimony, one of the things to to consider ourselves with as legislators is serving our constituents. And would you not agree that we would probably in Nashua, for example, serve our constituents better if in this time of extraordinary property value increases, which is really unprecedented, that we would be reevaluating the property faster than every 5 years, and something like 2 years or every year or whatever might make a lot more sense in terms of serving the constituency, in terms of keeping them abreast of what's happening with their property. My question is, the aldermen have this within their power now to make that assessment change every 1 year, every 2 years, every 3 years, whatever. They don't have to do it every 5 years. And would you agree that it would be a better service to the constituencies to pick a time period that's more frequent to keep them better informed as to what's going on with their property?
I don't have any disagreement with you on a more frequent time period. The only disagreement I have is it should be established in advance what that time period is going to be, and not adjusted somewhat arbitrarily in the opinion of some of the residents.
Thank you.
If we're going to do it every 2 years, then let's say we're going to do it every 2 years and do it every 2 years. But we have been doing it every 5 years.
Okay, so at this point, the chair would like to just direct members to be asking their questions as it pertains to the bill before us, so that we can become better informed, so that when we go into executive session, we can be making an informed decision with regards to the bill. I feel like we're skewing a little bit away from that, and we're talking about frequency, when, and how a reevaluation should be done, and I don't feel that that's kind of getting into a gray area. So with that in mind, the chair recognizes Representative Majori.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, Representative, for taking my question. I'm just curious if there's been any feedback either to you or to, well, I guess to you, from the other Nashua representatives. I see there's only a few people on here, but I'm just curious if the other reps have had any feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't say that I have. I spent 10 weeks walking the streets and campaigning, and I got quite the earful when these assessments came out right during the campaign. So we were all surprised by the snap revaluation and the lack of time to prepare for a potential appeal.
Further questions? Representative Elwood is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. When it comes to challenging or preparing for abatement, is it not true that you have to have comparables run to determine fair market value? You might want to hire an assessor yourself, maybe an attorney. And would those professionals be available within 7 days typically?
Probably not.
Thank you.
If I may just amplify that, I just pulled all the assessor cards, I looked at my neighboring units and did the homework myself and said, this seems out of line, and made my own appeal without success.
Further questions? Representative Gilman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be quick. When you referred to a handout, was it this one with the Nashua, New Hampshire? Okay. It displays on it the number of properties and the means of the valuation, and then the median sales price. Is this the kind of information that you would expect to have on this notification, or do you expect to have the particular property's valuation?
No, the assessment valuation I got was very restrictive. I pulled this out from doing some research. But the notice I got that I could have brought in but didn't bring in as well is a very straightforward notice. Dear, greetings. Your property has now been assessed at A. And if you have a problem, you have 7 days to call this phone number. And that's all we got.
Representative Ohm, I had trouble hearing what your response was. What was in the notice that you received? I didn't hear everything.
Yeah, and I apologize for mumbling. The notice was a very simple one-page notice. It said that, dear owner of this property, you are now assessed at this number for this period of property tax payments. And if you agree with this number, you're noticed. If you don't agree with the number, here's a phone number you can call to the group that's doing these assessments and talk to them first before you talk to the city.
Thank you for that clarification. Representative Grund is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Ohm, for taking my question. Did you have a chance to talk to any officials in the city of Nashua to understand why they made a surprise, step valuation, or why they chose, or who chose the 7 days, if we can get more information on that?
No, I didn't. I did not. I just got to work.
Further questions? I saw a hand down here. Representative Frocht?
Mine would be repetitive of Representative Grund's previous question.
Okay. Further questions? I have a question. So with regards to the 45, you're a co-sponsor. Originally it was 90, Senate amended it to 45. Could you share with us thoughts with regards to a number less than 45?
I'd object to that.
You would object?
Yeah, I think the 90 was a good number. There's plenty of time to give plenty of notice. When the tax bills are coming out, you could say, look, 90 days, get ready for it. I would object to something less than 45, and I would like to go back to the original as introduced as 90.
So to clarify, that's what you're saying here, just to be very clear. So you would like to have your preference would be a 40-day notice of the exact reevaluation. So what that means is that all this work needs to be done 90 days ahead of the issuance of the tax bill. That's what you're advocating for, or alternatively, are you advocating for a simple notification that reevaluations will be done?
I think the latter, Chairman Power. I think we just need to know that this is coming, and if you're squirrely about it, you've got time to prepare for that assessment.
So in that type, to me, that's a different type of a notification that's currently in statute and in this bill. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I guess I haven't thought it through that well. The issue that's really at heart here is to not be surprised by a quick reassessment. And anything we can do to not be surprised by a quick reassessment would be appreciated by my constituents.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Walker is recognized for a question.
Thank you. What was the date of your notification?
It was in October.
October.
Yeah.
When do assessments typically happen in Nashua?
I'm not sure I know. I just got my tax bill and then I, prepare to write the check. But when there's a reassessment, that's new. And that came out in October.
So you had, if I may,
Yes. Follow up.
you had a reassessment the year before, and then you had another one, a snap one, like you guys were saying?
Yeah, about 2 years before October, we had a reassessment. And okay, so we got our new tax bills. We're prepared to pay those payments. And now, as we get prepared to pay our next round of tax bills, we get this notice that there's a reassessment coming your way. So we're all worried about it. Well, if everything goes up the same, we're going to get the same tax. But everything did not go up the same. As I found out from my research, there's a different increase in value from residential property over commercial property. And that said that now the residences are going to have to take a higher dollar amount of the total tax bill in Nashua.
Well,
And that's
you-
a surprise.
What you're calling a snap reassessment was a court-ordered reassessment because of things that happened with the assessing company. So that's why that happened.
Yeah, as you point out correctly, Representative Wall, we've had serious issues with the assessment process in the state of Nashua. And it could well be a court-ordered part of the reform process.
Thank you.
Further questions? Representative Stavis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. What is there in this proposed bill that would address the differences in the percentages that you point out?
Thank you for the question. Only time to squawk to our alderman. You know,
Could you repeat that first part? There's
Yes.
construction noise, and we're sitting right near the window, and it's muffled.
yes, it's kind of like my muffled response. The recourse we would have is to, if we had 90 days, we'd have time to go to City Hall and talk to the mayor, talk to the alderman, say, look, why are you doing this right now, and have you really properly assessed what the impact is of your constituents when you're doing a short notice assessment, and have you indeed done your due diligence on the commercial property as well as your computer diligence on the residential property. Give us time to get some relief from the elected officials on their decision in case they made a decision a little too prematurely before letting their constituents know.
Representative Colby is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Was anyone contacted from the New Hampshire Association of Assessing Officials regarding these changes? And I ask because municipalities in New Hampshire are often having to go out of state to find assessors that can complete the work in a reasonable and statutory amount of time. So I was curious if we have any information from them as to if this is a manageable task.
Yeah, that's certainly an excellent point. We have pretty strong evidence that we had difficulty in finding competent people in the city of Nashua. And I think it's entirely appropriate to go to a third party without any biases or concerns to get a fair assessment of it. And my conclusion is supportive of that assessment, that they did indeed do a decent assessment. The numbers they came up with are fair market value assessments. And the quibbles that I had personally are valid, but didn't rise to the extent that they wanted to adjust the square footage or the location of one condo and next to another with better views and windows. They didn't want to get into that. It was kind of by the computer, and I squawk about it, but I can't say it's a material squawk. I thought it was a fair process to go outside to get a third party, and I don't have any qualms about Nashua doing that.
Further questions? Representative Frocht is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, thank you for taking my question. Do you have or have you looked for any historical data in the city of Nashua to see if the different types of residences and also the different types of commercial industrial go up at roughly the same rate during the previous normal 5-year cycle of reassessment?
No, I hadn't gone back to beyond the last 2 years based on what I pulled out here in the reference sheet on the second page. The economy has booms and busts, and the residents' property values have boom and busts particularly with interest rates. When mortgage rates are low, we get great interest in property. When the economy is doing strong, then commercial valuations go up. They may be in sync, they may not be in sync. But if you have a long period, you can kind of average out what's going on over that longer period. You could say, well, okay, we picked a period that didn't bias one or the other. And we did a 5-year average of assessments. We could say, okay, it's fair. But my look at this assessment said we saw a boom in real estate because of the desirability of Nashua, and we had a slowdown in the economy with COVID. And that, to me, explained why the commercial rates stayed fairly modest and the residential rates are much as 50% higher on a percentage basis, which has got my constituents and myself concerned.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Further questions? So I do have a question with regards to this process of reevaluating properties. There's a timeline. The municipality needs to decide that they will be doing a reevaluation for whatever reason. It seems in this case that there was a court order to do a reevaluation. So they need to secure a company to do the reevaluation. I doubt that whoever they get a contract with can just run out immediately and do it. Could you please speak to that timeline from the decision that's made by the governing body of a municipality to do a reevaluation and the work that needs to be done in the scheduling and then the reporting and how that would all fit into a timeline?
Yeah,
Of
excellent
45
question.
days.
Excellent question. We may have some crazy circumstances in this with the court orders and the problems we've had in the past and the amount of time to recover properly. I would argue that if we had a longer assessment period that was established in statute, say 2 years minimum, that would give the time for all the parties to do a good due diligence of the on-site evaluations of the property, not just the computer evaluations of the property for assessment purposes. So yes, I'm very sympathetic toward the time process. And if we could have a larger time process with reasonable time periods for everyone to get involved, I think that would work much better.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. So the final pink card that I have here is from Mr. Deshays. And he indicates that the time needed to speak is 30 seconds. So that's the first.
I'll be extreme. So Brody Deshays, New Hampshire Municipal Association, we're opposed to the bill. I would point to you to review the Senate hearing report where the president of the New Hampshire Assessors Officials Association, Jim Michaud, comments on the time period and as to why the 90 days was reduced to 45 days, the time periods when assessments are typically done, the turnaround, and why the shorter 45 days was pointed out to be necessary to be able to get tax bills out before January 1st, and how under the current bill, there still is a little bit too tight of a timetable, and it would be a preference for 30 days. Also, there's, some issues raised with needing to do assessments after April 1st because that is when the sales come in. There's also a shortage of assessors in the state too, which makes a lot of this work difficult to do on such a tight timetable. So by creating a 90-day requirement, even 45-day requirement, you're artificially shortening the time period when assessors can work, and there already is a shortage of them. And with that, I think that's about 30 seconds, and I'll take any questions, but I don't think there's much more you guys need to ask. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Just hold one. Oh, Representative Stavis is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. Would this extended period of notification time, in fact, give anyone the ability to change the tax structure between commercial and residential property in New Hampshire?
Yeah, so you're asking about the fact that residential properties have been increasing in value at a much faster rate than commercial, relatively speaking. No, that's just how the market is. I mean, I live in Wolfboro, and we've seen commercial properties, the percentage of total tax base that they contribute to compared to residential has declined. There's our residential housing market in New Hampshire is in huge demand. There are people nationally who are trying to move to this area of the country and want to live in New Hampshire. It's a great place to live. I don't blame them, but that drives up residential home cost, and there's not as many people trying to rent or buy commercial properties.
Representative Walker is recognized.
Thank you. Do you know of any community in the state that notifies their taxpayers of an impending assessment?
In the Senate hearing report, Mr. Michaud reports that the town of Hudson does 60 days in advance that they have an estimate of what you may anticipate your property value to be. There's nothing in this bill or in the current statute that requires an estimate to be sent. It just requires a notification that your assessment will change, and there's not really any kind of time period established. It's just kind of an expectation probably before your tax bill is sent to you.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I will ask, is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this bill who has not yet had the opportunity to do so? Seeing none, the chair recognizes Representative Gilman to report the blue sheets. Representative Free, okay, Representative Walker is going to grab the blue sheet here. That's okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to say that the Senate runs by different rules, and their calendars are quite different. So I haven't found a way to tell you how many people have registered online.
So just to clarify, would that not, you should be looking at the House. The House electronic blue sheets, because the hearing is in the House. Did I misunderstand what you said?
No, you're correct, and I did look that way. But the only thing that shows up on the House side of the website are House bills, no matter which body they're in.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't see it.
Thank you.
And there's one on the written blue sheet in support of the bill.
Okay, so we're all reported out on the blue sheets? Yes, it sounds like we are. So with that, the chair now closes the public hearing on Senate Bill 225. So at this time, it's a little bit before 11, and I would assume that we would like to hold partisan caucuses to discuss the bill that we just heard before execing. Would that be correct, Representative Davis? Okay. Just hold for 1 second.
Doing in 3 minutes for the little boys' room. And the little girls' room too.
Okay, so at this time, the committee will go into partisan caucuses, and we will reconvene, come back to begin executing bills at, let's say, 11:20. Thank you. That allows for stretching of legs. The committee will come to order, and at this time, we will move into executive sessions. Okay. So you're all set, right? So at this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 42, relative to the notice of death affidavits. Do I have a motion? The chair recognizes Representative Stavis. Sorry, I need to gavel that open. The chair recognizes Representative Stavis for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move ought to pass on Senate Bill 42.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Representative Maggiore, you seconded that. Representative Stavis, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. SB 42 seems to me a very common sense measure that would help prevent probate, especially for individuals in mourning at very difficult times in their lives. Might make it possible for them not to have to hire attorneys, thus saving residents money. And I think it's a common sense good measure that ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Stavis. Are there any further comments? Okay. Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass on Senate Bill 42. If you are... Sorry, I just want to make sure there was so it's hard for me to see arms down this end of the table. And you switched seats again. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't moving too quickly. No problems, thank you. Yep. So the motion before us is ought to pass on Senate Bill 42. If you are in favor of that motion, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to the motion, you will vote no. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Aylward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Freeman,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Germana,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 18-0. The committee recommendation is ought to pass, and without objection, that will go on the House consent calendar. So the committee report will be written by Representative Stavis. Okay, thank you. And with that, the chair now closes the executive session on Senate Bill 42. Okay. At this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 217 relative to public notice of historic tax rates and tax impacts of proposed projects. Do I have a motion? Representative Walker is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion to ITL.
The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there a second? Representative Stavis is recognized.
I second the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there discussion,
Yes.
debate?
Uh,
I'm sorry, my mistake. Representative Walker, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. This bill, I think, is well-intentioned. However, it impacts the municipal offices a lot. You're trying to put a lot of information on the front end of the of the website, which I think is very cumbersome, very awkward to use. I think the most people, most voters aren't going to be looking for some of this information where it is. It's not going to be everybody. So I just think this is just well-intentioned, but it's just poorly implemented through this bill.
Thank you. Are there further comments? Representative Gilman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if the meeting that I missed that if this blue sheet was read, but electronically, there were 12 in support of this bill and 80 opposed. And I also would like to comment that the bill does not define chart. So is it a bar chart, a pie chart, or a Venn diagram chart? Picky, I know.
Thank you, Representative Gilman. Are there further comments? So I'll comment in that I understand the intent of this bill. It's well intentioned, and my understanding is that it is to provide further information to voters so that they can be better informed when it comes to voting on spending. And this bill would provide historic data with regards to spending in a municipality, and I think that there's value in that. Where the town that I live in, I happen, as a taxpayer, happen to participate in 3 annual meetings. And I noticed that over time, for whatever reason, that the information that's presented during either deliberative sessions or at town meeting has diminished over time. There's less and less information and less details. And so that's a challenge. And in response to that, there are concerned citizens who have the background and the experience to do research and provide this type of information that is missing, that, again, in my experience, taxpayers are seeking and they want to know. And unfortunately, that information is either accepted or rejected depending upon which camp you're in. So, like I said, I do see value to this bill. But that all being said, I found the bill in its drafting and the way that it came to us to be insufficient. And in response to that, I did go and I had OLS draft an amendment, which I found was not supported and would not be supported by this committee. So I did make the effort to address some of the deficiencies that as a member of this committee for now my 5th year, I felt that it would make the bill better. And also in the amendment that I shared with the committee, that obviously I'm not offering, I feel that I did in good faith attempt to address some of the issues and concerns that were raised during the hearing. So that's my input. Representative Grunt?
Thank you. Yeah, it made me think of 2 things that troubled me with this particular bill. Is when it breaks down the types of taxes. One of the comments that was made to us was because they wanted to show that the state is paying their fair share, but that's not what numbers say. An explanation of what's behind the numbers would say something like that. So I was struggled with that, because just throwing numbers out doesn't say what happened, whether there's a new valuation that happened, what changed the tax rate. That's more meaningful to me. So if you really want to present something, present it properly. The other piece that bothered me with going to the, as amended by the Senate, it talks about summary of proposed taxpayer-funded building projects, et cetera. But projects do not always mean warrant articles. So for instance, we had 2 projects in our school, and it was in the operating budget. We put a new secure front entrance into the operating budget. It passed, clearly, but it would not have been it's a separate project, but it's no tax impact per se because it's buried in the operating budget. So it's things like that where it did not clarify the ability to do a proper tax impact. Thank you.
Further comments? So I have one final comment. My perspective would be that this bill, the sponsors may wish to work on it further and to perhaps refile this in the future. So last call on comments. Okay, so seeing none, the motion before us is inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 217. If you are in favor of this motion, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to this motion, you will vote no. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Nolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes. Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Freeman,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Germana,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
No. The motion passes with a vote of 17-1. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 217 is inexpedient to legislate. Without objection, the recommendation will go on the consent calendar. And the committee report will be written by Representative Walker. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And with that, the chair closes the executive session on Senate Bill 217. Next, the chair opens the executive session on Senate Bill 78 relative to the Zoning Board of Adjustments appeal period. The chair recognizes Representative Germana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to adopt Amendment 2025-1713H on SB 78.
Thank you, Representative Germana. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Representative Walker seconded that. Representative Germana, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would, thank you. This amendment just addresses changing it from a 30-day filing period that you have to go to that Board of Adjustments to 45 days. We heard in the hearing that the 30 days could be a challenge to some, especially smaller municipalities, but really to any municipality that kind of has to meet these deadlines. 45 days seems like a good middle point just to make sure everything's getting done on time, as well as we have that amount of days set for construction projects or whatever it may have you. So yeah, needed legislation, and it feels like a good point to make sure every municipality is thought of with that 45-day period.
Thank you. Are there further comments? Representative Elward is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I support the 45-day language. The court, as I understand it, defined a reasonable amount of time as 30 days. And I do know that this speaks not to the municipality, but to the applicant, abutter, or the appellant having the time to do what's necessary to file for an appeal that could even involve hiring an attorney, and that can't be done in just a couple of weeks. So I support this.
Thank you. Further comments? Okay, seeing none, the motion before us is to accept amendment 2025-1713H. If you are in favor of accepting this amendment, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to accepting the amendment, you will vote no. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Freeman,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Germana,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Amendment 2025-1713H to House Bill 78 is accepted with a vote of 18-0. Do I have a further motion? Representative Germana is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move ought to pass as amended.
Is there a second? Representative Walker seconds that motion. Representative Germana, would you like to speak to your motion?
I think we covered it.
Okay. Are there any comments? No? Okay, seeing none. The motion before us is ought to pass with amendment on House Bill 78. If you are in favor of that motion, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to that motion, you will vote no. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Freeman,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frocht,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Germana,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 18-0. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 78 is ought to pass with amendment. And without objection, that will go on to the House consent calendar. And I would assume that Representative Germana will write the report. Thank you. And with that, the chair will close the executive session on Senate Bill 78. At this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 105, enabling towns to adopt budget caps. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a motion to adopt amendment number 2025-1626H.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you, Representative Murphy. So I will speak to this amendment. So this amendment is to a bill that is a town budget cap, which is exactly the same legislation that was passed last year it was the Senate Bill 383. It was a school district budget cap. So the amendment here is the exact same type of an amendment to do the same changes that were made in House Bill 374. And that is a housekeeping bill to the school district budget cap. So the first change here in the amendment is OLS reordered some paragraphs. So with regards to, let's see, starting on line 5, where it says town budget cap, that changes in this paragraph have to do with clarification of terms, specifically as defined in subparagraph A and as defined in subparagraph B. Those clarifications are made, and there's also additionally, there's some renumbering of paragraphs for further clarification. Additionally, unfortunately, I have a side-by-side here, and I'm not going to take the time to specifically reference the line numbers, but there's also a change that's made in this amendment to change the inflation index from, as the bill was filed, from January 1st to October 1st. And the reason for that is that with regards to the budgeting season, it was felt that it would be better to have the number from October 1st. And then further, there's, with regards to Roman numeral 3 of the amendment, there's some renumbering due to paragraph 3 and renumbering, reorganization by OLS. It just references got somehow messed up. And then under the bill as filed, we have Roman numeral 5 and 5A, and that section was deleted because it was found that this was being misinterpreted and causing confusion. So that's deleted. And additionally, under V, Roman numeral V, section B, there's a paragraph, subparagraph notation for B is renumbered for clarification. And there's also a missing word that was added under 32.5-H Roman numeral 2, or is added in. And then also under Roman numeral 4, on page 2 of the amendment, it adds paragraph references for clarity. And it also includes the option for the municipal cost index to be an option. And it also corrects incorrect references. There was a Scribner's error, and it changed it to G from an E. And also we have under Roman numeral 5, with regards to the question, it stipulates that the warrant article language is not amendable because this is statutory language to adopt the budget cap. And that section also adds references to a new paragraph, Roman numeral 6, which allows a change to an existing tax cap, and it also updates references. And then under Roman numeral 6, this is a new paragraph to clarify that an existing budget cap can be changed and without the need to rescind the budget cap, but and obviously it needs to follow the same procedure to make a change to the methodology or the formula for the budget cap. And so that basically highlights the changes. Further comments? Representative Colby.
I have a little bit going on here. So I started off with lines 16 through 18, where we talk about how we're going to measure. And I understand that this already exists but there's already existing statute that talks about the population measurement. In going on to the Bureau of Economic Affairs website, the most recent figures that are available are 2 years old to determine population. And the BEA's own website has multiple disclaimers in bold writing that warn against using the figures for the purposes of accounting for population changes, which is the very thing that this, both the amendment and the underlying bill are asking us to do. I think there are significant enough concerns that there are potential long-term effects of using the data provided in an inappropriate, against their own warnings. In addition to that, the budget, the Republican budget that just passed in the House calls for cuts to significant cuts to this department. So do we know that this department will even be able to keep up with the figures if they're already 2 years behind? Also concerning is choosing an inflationary index. The communities are going to be given multiple options. They can use the municipal cost index. They can use CPI. I'm assuming they can use New England CPI, which right now has a 2% variation across all the indices. So choosing the wrong index can devastate a community. In Londonderry, it would be a $900,000 mistake. And that's going to accumulate year over year. In Bow, that represents $240,000. And then we further in line 30 strip the power away from our constituents to amend the warrant article. So should the governing body pick an indices and say, well, we made a $900,000 error, I think we should have someone make a motion at town meeting to fix that. That can't be done. It's locked in, so it's all or nothing. And I'll also add that the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, actually recommends not using one inflation factor, but they recommend using the best figure to determine inflation in an upcoming budget year to actually monitor monthly trends and forecasts and applying different indices depending on the expenditure category. For instance, healthcare costs, you wouldn't be applying a 3% CPI increase. You'd be looking at more of a 14% increase. So I think this goes against all the advice that is available and out there, and it would be a huge mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Colby. Representative Grund is recognized for comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to thank Representative Colby for everything she said. So I don't want to repeat. The one thing I do want to make sure to clarify is questions that are on warrant articles. Warrant articles are amenable, not necessarily the wording, but amounts, percentages are amenable. So I just want to make sure everyone's very clear on that. So I am completely against taking away the legislative body ability to change any warrant article, either at a deliberative session or a town meeting.
Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is to accept Amendment 2025-1626H to Senate Bill 105. If you are in favor of accepting this amendment, then you will vote yes. If you are opposed to accepting this amendment, then you will vote no. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Freeman,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No.
Representative Germana,
No.
Representative Lane,
No.
Representative Grund,
No.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Amendment 2025-1626H to Senate Bill 105 is accepted by a vote of 10 to 8. Is there a further motion?
Madam Chair,
The chair recognizes Vice Chairman McDonald.
motion to pass SB 105 as amended.
The motion ought to pass with amendment. Is there a second? Representative Walker seconds the motion. Would you like to speak to your motion, Representative McDonald?
I believe everything's been said.
Are there other additional comments? Representative Gilman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, the electronic submissions do not show, well, I can't find the opinions on amendments, but the original bill had support of 13 and opposition of 127. And I think even with the amended language, this is still a very unpopular bill, and that's why I will vote against it.
Thank you, Representative Gilman. So I would also like to comment and remind everybody that this bill is enabling legislation, and if it were to be signed into law, it would then become enabling statute, which means that this is not something that any town needs to adopt. It's completely optional. And this is a fiscal tool that would be available to the voters of a town if they so choose to adopt it. And it would require a 3/5 supermajority to adopt. So that's my comment. I understand that there are people that do not like such things as tax caps and budget caps, but that's not really the bill before us. It's the tool that's before us. So, and again, I would reiterate that this is modeled exactly after the fiscal tool, that is the school district budget cap, which is available in statute. And this would apply to towns. So any further comments? Seeing none. So the motion before us is ought to pass with amendment on Senate Bill 105. If you are in favor of this motion, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to this motion, you will vote no. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Freeman,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Frocht,
No.
Representative Colby,
No.
Representative Germana,
No.
Representative Lane,
No.
Representative Grund,
No.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 10 to 8. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 105 is ought to pass with amendment. I will be writing the majority report, and the minority report will be written by Representative Colby. Thank you. And with that, the chair closes the executive session on Senate Bill 105. Okay, and the last bill before us is Senate Bill 225. So at this time, the chair will open the executive session on Senate Bill 225 FN Local, requiring public notice before a reassessment of property values for local tax purposes. Do I have a motion? Representative Walker is recognized for a motion.
Make a motion to inexpedient to legislate.
Thank you. Is there a second? Representative Stavis is recognized to second that. Representative Walker, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. Although this bill, I think, is well intended, I think it's written in a way that's a little bit vague in some areas and cumbersome in others. I do think that by taking out the either or the or on the original bill, makes it mandatory that a municipality does all methods of advertisement, which I think might be problematic. I think with testimony from the Municipal Association, the only municipal entity that does a notice for assessments is Hudson, and they do 60 days. And no other, in Rochester, we just put it on the website and say it at city council meetings, and that's the notification. We haven't had any issues with that. And I just think this is well-intentioned but hard to work with. So that's why I vote ITL.
Thank you. Further comments? Representative Freeman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for indulging me on this, although I am a guest in this committee. But my observations about SB 225 was that the spirit of this bill was absolutely to be applauded. But the situation in Nashua is not the norm across the state. And I think what might be helpful in the future is to break it down and find out what caused that lack of timeliness as far as getting the notices out. And also the remedy would be to go after the cause and not the effect. So at this point, while again, the spirit of the bill is to be applauded, I just think it was born out of some extraneous circumstances, and those circumstances should be addressed before we put in legislation like this.
Thank you. Further comments? So, I have a comment. So, as you may know, that I took the opportunity prior to the hearing, just because of circumstances, to draft an amendment. So I do agree with the intent of the bill, and that's to provide some sort of a notice. But after the bill hearing, there seemed to be, I don't feel that perhaps my amendment hit the mark. After we extensively questioned the prime sponsor and subsequent witnesses providing testimony with regards to this bill. Notably, it's not clear to me with regards to the different options, which now are no longer options, that it's a requirement that all types of notices shall be given, but the content of those notices is not clear. So I'm really conflicted by this bill because I do support it. The intent of it and my amendment wasn't gonna fulfill the needs based on after the hearing. So I would again suggest that the sponsors of this bill go back and do some more thinking and investigation and put some more thought into it and come back with some more precise, clear language that can fulfill the objective of the prime sponsor's intent without overburdening municipalities. So that would be my recommendation. For further comments? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was particularly troubled by the lack of consultation with Nashua city officials in the drafting of this bill or the intent of the bill. And I've now been on this committee for 7 years, and we've had a long-standing quasi-official policy of not supporting legislation that applies to one municipality only, to attempt to fix a problem in one municipality by wielding the heavy hammer of a state law that affects everyone. And I felt that this was kind of a prime example of a bill of that kind. And while I agree with my colleague that the intent is admirable and to be applauded, that there is a lot more consultation and a lot more thinking and research that needs to go into this bill in order to make it appropriate for the entire state and not just one municipality. If it's even appropriate for that municipality, and we can't know because no one was consulted.
Thank you, Representative Davis. And I just might add one last comment. And that would be, as I stated during the hearing, that it's important that the problem at hand be fully understood so that a proper response through legislation can be made. Because again, like I said with my amendment, the amendment was drafted based on my reading of the bill. So I think that it's very important, and it's prudent to first completely and fully understand the problem at hand. And then once that's accomplished, then legislation that can more precisely and properly address the situation will be more meaningful to our constituents. Further comments? Representative Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In my view and my experience over the several years, this is a classic example of a town problem, or in this case, a city problem, that's calling for the state to resolve for them. This is well within the authority of the city officials in Nashua to fix this problem, and I recommend they should, and just do it.
Thank you, Representative Dolan. Further comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 225 FN-local. If you are in favor of this motion, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to the motion, you will vote no. The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chairman McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Dolan,
Yes.
Representative Elward.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Franz,
Yes.
Representative Freeman,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Walker,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Frogt,
Yes.
Representative Colby,
Yes.
Representative Germana,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
Yes.
Representative Grund,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. The motion passes with a vote of 18-0. The committee recommendation on Senate Bill 225 FN-local is inexpedient to legislate, and without objection, the recommendation will go on to the House consent calendar. And the committee report will be written by Representative Walker. Thank you. So with that, the chair closes the executive session on Senate Bill 225 FN local. So that concludes the committee's publicly noticed business for today. And at this time, I have our favorite part of our meeting is the afternoon announcements. So a House session has been scheduled for this upcoming Thursday, May 1st at 10 a.m. Additionally, please take notice that beginning in July, this building, the Legislative Office Building, will be closed for the purposes of replacing the HVAC system and doing other facilities maintenance and repairs. So this closure and the work is expected to last through October of 2026. So as you all may know, we will be displaced from this building, and we will be meeting and conducting our business for the remainder of this term in office at 1 Granite Place. So what we need to do is that we've been notified that by May 22nd, members should remove all their personal belongings from committee rooms. So that would pertain to anything that members may have in their file drawers. After May 22nd, my understanding is that things will be disposed of, or if the owner, if it's something else of a personal nature, the owner will be tried to be identified and contacted. But nevertheless, I would recommend probably today, because our business here has concluded, make sure you take what you want out of those drawers. So additionally, I would recommend that members should be mindful of the House calendar for House sessions that are coming up, committee of conferences, and also bills that are retained or have been retained by this committee. My understanding is that work will be taken up in the fall of this year, in the September to October timeframe. So you will be noticed by email, and also check the House calendar. Are there any questions at this time? Representative Murphy.
Name tags. The plate tags, do we take those with us?
No, because we have, that's okay. We have one more year of your term. So everything that you see in this room is going to be packed up and brought over to 1 Granite Place. So we're not responsible for those things. Okay, thank you for asking the question. Representative Stavis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would just like to take a moment to recognize the excellent work that you have done leading this committee through this particular session, and that of the Vice Chair and the Clerk. None of us could have done what we have done without your leadership and without your good thinking and thorough research. We deeply appreciate it. This is the best committee in the New Hampshire House. Remains the best committee, and it is a privilege serving with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Stavis. I appreciate your kind words on behalf for the leadership of this committee. As you mentioned, the chair, the vice chair, and the clerk. And also, I think that those comments extend to all committee members as well, and not just directed to the three of us. So I do appreciate those kind words. Further comments? Okay, so seeing none, our meeting for today for the House Municipal and County Government Committee is completed and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.